What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 3, Episode 18, Distant Voices! See
Nailed
what I
it.
did there? Because I made the mic go further away?
Yeah.
I'm really good at this. How's it going, Mike?
Keith, as you can probably tell from my hue, I didn't keep my distance from the sun yesterday. It is scorching already. Summer came in quick and fast, which
sure
is so I'm so happy to be spending my entire day here in the air conditioning doing Deep Space Nine. I watched the show this morning. I'm recording this podcast right now. I'm going to then post this podcast for the YouTube audience directly after. But I will say, you've done something to me, buddy, because in grabbing my iced cafe this morning and turning on good old Deep Space Nine, there's always a feeling of like coming home and friends and visiting. I love Strange New World. I'm really enjoying it. I love toys. I love all of our shows that we do.
Yeah.
Something about Deep Space Nine always makes me feel like this is the one. This is the thing. So I'm with you. I mean, I think it's unfair for poor Strange New Worlds because we're only 10 episodes in, whereas we're like 40 something episodes into Deep Space Nine. Maybe it'll get there, but I feel that same way too. There's something about like good episode, bad episode, whatever. Like I'm there on the promenade, and I'm like, all right, this feels like my thing. Also, interestingly, this week, there's so much to talk about this week. I cannot wait because it's basically. Keith and I are often proponents of therapy and psychoanalyzation on this channel, and this episode is just 45 minutes of that. And also, often I think there's the initial allure of this show, or at least the premise was, what's newbie Mike gonna think about these episodes that we all know and love? I'm actually this week much more interested in the juxtaposition, which is my favorite word on this show for some reason. I find myself saying it quite often. Between 40-year-old Keith's viewing of this episode versus teen Keith when you think, I'm never going to be 30? Hell no. I'll be dead before I'm 30, and here we are. And also, so many chats. I can't wait to talk about it. Also,
well, I mean, more about, like, what do I think about the existential crisis I had when I turned 30 now that I'm 43? I feel very differently.
I spent today, we'll talk a little bit about it when we get there, I think, revisiting my 30-year-old existential crisis because I lived it through art, and
we all do.
Yeah, yep. I'm really interested. It's so many things, to be honest. This episode is so many things. So
well, I am fascinated with your point of view on this episode for sure. But before we can do that, we have to get your point of view on last week's episode, of course.
And I'm so excited people are doing this finally. We've been begging, and finally people are
people are absolutely doing it.
They're loosening their stem bolts, if you will.
So last week we talked about Visionary for a very long time. I'm looking because I had to pull up the thingy. We went for an hour and 36 minutes on Visionary. That's very long for us. So
is it?
Yeah, actually, we usually come in like 120, 125. It's like 10 minutes longer, which is a lot. So here are your ratings out of 100 self-sealing stem bolts. Joshua Cronin gives it a 75. Jason Moe comes in at an 80. YouTube viewer also with an 80. JD comes at a 70. Worf's Boot Shiv's up at 85. Harry Pothead also 85. And we have not one, but two super tip comment-a-thons. Get ready.
People are taking this. We made the offer, and so now we must provide.
Oh, here it is. I mean, and like I love it. It's fantastic. People have such smart and interesting things to say, and it's a cold read test for me. So can I get through the cold read clean? Let's find out. So, Sans Deity, our good friend who does this every week, says, first off, I will settle the argument, which is this is undeniably an O'Brien must suffer episode. Many people said that. Many people said he dies multiple times and is left with a huge mind F at the end, along with the rest of us. I really, really like this episode. It's one of my favorites of season 3, and it's ironic because one of the main things I really enjoy about this is it's very much like an episode of Next Gen. Agreed. Deep Space Nine is my favorite show, and I think it's so much better than the other Star Treks because it's focused on more character work. But it was nice to get back to something sciencey. It's been a while since we've had a good old science mystery on Deep Space Nine, and this episode delivered a great one. I agree with Mike that time travel is hard to pull off, and if you can do it well, it stands out, which it does here. I loved how we got to see the same scenes play out from multiple perspectives, like Back to the Future 2. Back to the Future 2 is the bomb. That was me. One small...
Time
yes,
out.
Mike?
Is it just me? Back to the Future 2 kind of plays into this week's episode, because more and more, the Bashir makeup started looking like old Biff from...
It 100... Well, it looks like old Biff and somebody else I'm going to tell you a bit more in Trivial Triva. But yes, 100%. The old makeup was very much Back to the Future too.
But I didn't hate it, to be honest. I did not find it hokey, which I thought I was going to when it started. But I kind of...
I have a surprise for you about that too.
Oh, okay.
But before we get there, we have to continue. San saying one small thing I didn't like was how fast Julian was to dismiss Miles having vivid hallucinations when he says mild hallucinations are a symptom of radiation poisoning. Bashir just brushes them off too fast. I think he would be more concerned that he had intense hallucinations and not anything but mild ones, and then cracking a joke. But anyway, there's a reason Colin Meaney was given all those O'Brien Must Suffer episodes, because he plays the role of the beleaguered man so well. He does. In many of those O'Brien Must Suffer episodes, not only does O'Brien suffer, but he's on some sort of an island by himself. In Visionary, he's the one time traveling and is the only one who knows the true stakes of the Romulan attack, since only he sees the destruction of the station, and is the only one who has to deal with to live with an unsettling feeling that he isn't himself. Colin just seems to kill it in that role of isolated hero. Incredible performance. Another thing I noticed on this rewatch is how funny the episode is. There are so many hilarious beats, none better than Kira saying, "I'm always diplomatic," to the quick cut of her yelling at the Romulans. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and I resent the implication. I freaking love her. Give Nana Visitor her flowers. But there are a lot of other funny comments with O'Brien and Odo, and O'Brien with himself. But while this is like a Next Gen episode in many ways, it still Deep Space Nines it up by introducing the idea of a new Miles and the creepy idea that Miles is not truly himself. Although I feel that's how it is anytime you use a transporter. The you that entered is not the you that leaves it.
I like that.
I'm also curious, what happens to this Molly and Keiko? Does he disappear from their lives and they think he's dead? Do they wink out of existence? Geez Louise, this show is deeper than I thought. Thanks, guys. 90.991 self-sealing stem bolts. Hell yes, they are self-sealing. By the way, Mike, keep up the ad-libs on the bumper songs and the K&Mers bumper song, and K&Mers call someone you love today. Good advice. And Delusions at Noon.
I love K&Mers. I mean, it makes me feel weird, but I also love it.
It's K&Mers. I don't know. What do you want to be called? It's like, Trekkies, Trekkers, K&Mers, K&Mers. Do you just not want to be associated with us, which is, I think, what I would choose?
That's fair, yeah. I mean, past 40, I'll take any K&Mer I can get. You know what I mean?
Wow. There it is. All right. So, we mentioned if you leave a super tip, we read your comment. And this one, we have 2 Delusions at Noon. Always phenomenal analysis there as well. Says, I give this one an 81. A fun episode, but for me, a little conceptually thin. I'm somewhat less enamored of the time travel stories for their own sake than Keith is. And for me, they mainly work when they're a vehicle for exploring other ideas. I'm thinking of the way Back to the Future uses time travel as a way to dramatize the shock and maturation that comes with the moment you realize that your parents are just screwed up people clumsily muddling through life exactly like you, or, very good point, or how Kurt Vonnegut's novel Slaughterhouse-5 uses time jumping as a metaphor for PTSD, or how the great TNG episode Cause and Effect uses its time loop plot as a microcosm to explore the tension between stasis and growth that comes with an episodic storytelling and ongoing character development. Here, the narrative gimmick doesn't really feel like it reaches for any broader idea, as in those bolder, better examples, and it doesn't do much to develop O'Brien's character. Do you teach like at a university somewhere? This is really smart. Delusions continues. That said, it makes for some slightly exasperating. It strains credulity that no one ever even raises the possibility of a connection between the presence of a quantum singularity and the presence of the Romulans when they first discover the cause of O'Brien's time jumps. Yes, agreed. Yet still quite enjoyable to watch for its own sake, and the whole backdrop with the Romulan negotiations and the Klingon spies is doing important table setting for later episodes and seasons. Yes, it's always very cool to see how artfully the writers thread the ongoing Dominion arc through the episodes that seem like standalones. And it's definitely an O'Brien must suffer episode, and upon reflection on some future events in that vein, I think one could argue dying might not rank in the top 3 worst things that happened to O'Brien in the course of the series. You damn right. Mm-hmm. Fantastic analysis. I mean, honestly, I think Sans and Delusions should just take over the show. They're just smarter than we are.
Well, let's relax. They can be our Joan Rivers. You know what I mean? If we ever have to Johnny Carson away for a vacation, they can Joan Rivers in for us. I have to bring this up or I will fail to mention it. Yeah. It is completely a non sequitur here, but this is what the show has done for me. I was running like days ago and I had this kind of thought about the grand scheme of where we are and everything. And it really scared...
In Deep Space Nine, that
is? Yes. Yeah, in Deep Space Nine. And I'm surprisingly on task today, Keith. And it's scary, actually. And you have a little more context than I. So I was thinking about recent developments about our continued reminders of the stakes of the Dominion threat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, and how far the Romulans are willing to take things to protect against it, how we had to like build a nuclear sub to basically protect ourselves. Kind of, the preparation in the threat level is on DEFCON red, right? Across what seems to be all of our known species, or that's the vibe. However, outside of the Jem'Hadar, our view of the Founders, who are pulling the strings of the Dominion, to my understanding, where we are, every time we've seen Mama Odo, right, who appears to be the leader, as so much as we've been
figurehead
shown,
to some extent,
she, right? Did we establish they are completely nonplussed, never angered, never seem to be threatened. They don't seem to view us and our preparations, or the Romulan preparations, or the Klingon preparations, or any preparations taking place, or
not impressed.
Not even remotely threatened. In fact, all she really cares about is kind of seeing what makes Odo tick. She's just And I'm like, oh man, that's not bluster. That doesn't seem to be bluffs. If they're not even concerned with our level of concern and preparation, we are screwed.
No, I mean, honestly...
And I was running and I got palpitations, Keith. I was physically human scared on this side of the wormhole, so that's not good.
No, I mean, that's a really good observation. Like, it is so... Her lack of concern is so ominous. I mean, she's looking at the entire quadrant like somebody looks at an interesting bug.
Yeah.
Like sort of poking it with a stick, like, what does it do?
Well, if you're playing poker, right, and you just pushed in your life savings, you're all in, right? And the guy you're playing against isn't sweating, then
he's like checking his phone.
Either he's the best bluffer in the world, or you're fucked.
Yeah.
Those are only 2 options.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
So anyway, the super tip is straight below, folks. You don't have to join the Patreon, though. Maybe you should. If you want to have your comment read here, if you have something interesting to say, pop in a super tip.
All right. Well, I think we should go to the super tip top of this episode and talk about Distant Voices, which aired on April 10th, 1995. We had a few weeks off, so we could really think about last episode. Our top song. I can't wait to hear it. Mike, are you warmed up? Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It.
This is how we do it. It's Friday night, and the moon is right.
No, that's TGIF.
If you're a wannabe Mac or an OG player. I think that's Regulators. Well, I do know. This is how we do it.
Yeah, we got that part. I think for a second you went into the TGIF theme song, and then you really took a journey there.
Oh, yeah, well, you know what?
Friday night and the mood is right. Gonna have some fun. Show you how it's done. TGIF.
Oh, you're right. I sure did. Well, there you go.
There you go. I mean, to be fair, it's what we were watching in 1995. Okay. What was Voyager doing today? State of Flux, in which we discover a traitor on Voyager. Look out.
Oof.
Mike, if we weren't watching Voyager, or maybe after we watched Voyager, what else were we watching tonight?
Keith, I'm going to waste our time with a bit of a clip later, so I'm going to bypass this to I'm reserving my time. He's
reserving. Okay, noted. Wow. Okay. It's out of order. Mr. Speaker, out of order.
Reserving my time. I'm reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time. Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, the weekly world news headline. This is an interesting one. I feel like it was probably written by a Koch brother. The rainforest virus will destroy the world. The disease that will claim billions of human lives triggered by an infected monkey. We better bomb those rainforests. Get them out of the world. Also, America's greatest prophet warned of the plague back in 1945. Guys, look out for those rainforests. They're really coming for us.
There are so many things I love about this, actually. One, my mom was born in 1945. So perhaps she was that great prophet, or she was the plague. I mean,
she might be the plague, yeah.
You could look at it either way. And also, if you just change the disease that will claim millions triggered by infected bat goo, you got a shot at being truthful here. Almost well done, Weekly World News. Almost well done.
Almost. All right, so Distant Voices was directed by Alexander Singer, who last directed Heart of Stone. It has a teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolfe, with a story by Joe Menosky, who last wrote the story to Rivals. Which means it's time for some Trivial Trivia. Now, Keith, waste your time.
With what?
With Trivial Trivia.
Bum, 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 bum.
Okay, here we are in the Trivial Trivia. Mike, you mentioned the makeup a little bit before. Did you know that this won the Emmy for makeup?
Oh, I did not know that.
And yeah, so there it is. And let me just make sure I have this connection right. Yes. So, did you see the pictures I put in there?
I did. Would you like to put those on the screen?
Let's put them up here as it relates to the makeup. Do you see the similarities between the two of those folks there?
I do indeed. Keith, on the watch along that you can find me doing every week at patreon.com/K&M, I noted at some point it did seem to be a swap where it was no longer Alexander Siddig. Is that true?
Nope, it is. It continues to be Alexander Siddig.
Did they just model his face after our friend here?
After Malcolm McDowell, Oscar-winning actor Malcolm McDowell, also the bad guy in Star Trek Generations.
The very same.
And also, guess what? Alexander Siddig's uncle.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought you might that Trivial Trivia.
That's great.
But what's interesting is that Malcolm McDowell was much younger than this when they did the episode, but the makeup made him look exactly like current day Malcolm McDowell.
Huh, it does. As a matter of fact, it does.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, in fact, we'll talk about this later, but I really thought that, with the old person and the makeup and the this and the that, it was rife for Siddig to kind of caricature up the old guy, but I really felt that he didn't do that, and that he was really focused on giving a grounded and empathetic, not just emotional performance. I mean, how he gets crankier and kind of more scraggly, but his physical performance I thought was pretty grounded too. He definitely did some work there, I think.
Yeah, I think this episode really shows the growth in Alexander Siddig's acting. From the Make Me Live episode when he was Vantika, that was didn't quite go well. And this was sort of like a do-over. and actually did, I think, a remarkably good job.
And clearly they had seen his growth because they felt safe giving him a. This is
right.
There's pretty much nothing really happening about him.
It's like a solo episode. Yeah, it really is. Also, in trivia, Robert Hewitt Wolf's wife, who was a pre-vet at that point, pointed out to him over and over, because he wrote this in previous episodes, the preganglionic fiber and the postganglionic nerve are completely different, and nobody would ever mix it up by accident. And putting this into the episode is one of the things he did to get his wife to stop bothering him about how stupid his mistake was. I thought
that was very specific. That's awesome that it was a Easter egg. That's cool.
It was an Easter. Yeah, it was like, no, there's no way somebody like Bashir would make that mistake. So, and I love the following up on it. And are we done following up on that? No, we are not. All right. You know who else we're not done with, Mike?
Who could that possibly be?
That would be our patrons. Mike, I would like you to tell us who's patroning the patron at patreon.com/KNM, and what are they getting in exchange for their hard-earned cash?
Well, folks, first I'm going to tell you that you can join the team at patreon.com/KNM, and I really suggest you do. You might have heard our friends Sans Deity and Delusions at Noon giving incredible, insightful commentary here on the YouTube channel, but guess what? It's happening every week in the comments on the watch-alongs.
Sure is.
And the other
K&Mers.
Yeah, the K&Mers are having incredible conversations. Sometimes we're not even a part of them. And since the picnic we did a couple weeks ago, and you can watch that on the channel, us all, the folks watching Star Trek V together, it really was a blast. And the more the merrier.
So much fun.
Come and join the team. You really don't have to give us a lot of money. Just a couple bucks a month will get you in on that content. Also, I'm watching every episode of Deep Space Nine and Strange New World in real time, giving my comments. I'm playing video games and dropping demos. We're doing just anything extra that we're thinking of or doing at the time. We're throwing on the Patreon just to say thanks. Also, every episode gets dropped into a singular RSS feed, so if you want to listen to the podcast versions, you don't have to go searching for them. They all just appear on the Patreon-only RSS feed. But most importantly, Keith, and I was I was commenting on this today, it is difficult to make money on YouTube. It is difficult to really recoup any of your time investment. We don't do it. Keith and I both are grown men with real jobs, and this isn't a money-making venture, but it does help us offset our time, and you can have your stamp financially as a producer on the show. That is the main benefit of becoming a patron and so if it's not us, find another creator that you appreciate and throw them some bucks. It really is the best way to support the content and the people and the content creators that you appreciate. Patreon.com/KNM. Come on over and join the team. We'll replicate a Rappuccino for you.
Yes, indeed. Yes. All right. So, Mike, what do you say we hop into the screening room?
Keith, I can't wait. And I'm going to remember to click this button now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, are we ready? Are we ready for Distant Voices?
We are, Keith, and before you even start, I wanted to point something out because we always like to highlight production. And first things first. So, when you're directing an episode of television, especially on such a quick turnaround like these shows were, the director doesn't have a time to focus on. He's got to set the shot and he's got to get things going, right? So there are people, and I have a friend, my friend Bo actually is a set dresser. So he works on movies and television shows, and his basic thing is they say, here's what the scene is, go get all the props, make the props, here's your budget, whether you like it or not, here's your budget, get the props, make the thing look like it's supposed to look. That's basically what you get, and then hopefully your team is good. And here, the storytelling is amazing because a lot of times food is overlooked. Keith and I have mentioned many times, we've seen actors just totally miming eating on camera and nobody catches it, nobody even sees it, they're faking it, which drives me insane. But here, there's a subtle comic beat about Garak saying he's chubby or he's feeling overweight and the doctor's going to help him, but the storytelling continues because look at this set dresser. Look how Siddig has just a little bit, just like a nibble, right? Whereas Garak has a full plate of like 4 sushi rolls, 2 buttered things.
And neither one of them have eaten a bite of any of it.
Nope, and they don't need to because the set dressers taking care of it and let us see that maybe Garrick is eating a little too much.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I caught that right away. I thought it was really cool.
Oh, I should also point out our guest stars this week are, of course, Andrew Robinson back as Garrick, Victor Rivers as Altavar, and Gillespie as Jabara, and Nicole Forrester as the singing Dabo girl.
Oh, yeah, of course.
All right, so we begin. Huzzah! Garrick is here. Always welcome. Bashir and Garrick are on a date, and Garrick announces he's trying to lose weight. And he can think of some ways to exercise with Bashir, but before they can do that, it's Bashir's birthday. And Garrick got him a holosuite program of a Cardassian mystery novel.
Yeah, I was like, so Garrick, how many times does your penis appear on this holosuite program?
It's so funny. I try to pick up the phone. Oh no, it's Garrick's junk.
I feel like there's some subtext.
Oh boy, it's crazy. Oh my god, I'm just imagining just the member itself showing up as various objects throughout the story. I'm so sorry, everybody. We've ruined it already. Anyway, Bashir is not enthused because all Cardassian novels are about guilty people. We've actually talked about this before on the show. Turns out it's Bashir's 30th birthday, and he's sad because it's the beginning of the slow march towards middle age. Just wait, buddy. Wait till you're there. You have marched to your destination, and now you're just reveling in it.
Man, 30 was great, actually. Looking back,
30 was amazing. Yeah. But if I could live in one age in my life, I'd be 30. I'd just stay 30, be 30.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 30 was the peak for me. I think 30 was the pinnacle for me. Anyway, so Garrick doesn't understand not embracing aging. Cardassians embrace aging, which I think is actually pretty wise. But Quark interrupts and asks if his scary Lethian buddy can buy some biomimetic gel, which is naturally super illegal. And interesting here, basically what's happening is Quark is trying to use Bashir as a way to bail on this horrible deal. It's probably, I think we see biomimetic gel some other time, or we did before, but definitely used for WMD kind of stuff. So Quark is trying to get out of it, which is interesting. And of course, Bashir's like, hell no. But when he goes back to the infirmary, the Lethian is there trying to steal something, probably the biomimetic gel. They struggle, and the Lethian zaps Bashir with a bunch of finger lightning. Not I don't know what the plan was for the Lethian here, but it was not a very sophisticated attempt at getting plutonium.
Yeah, and also it's such a trope, right? And we'll see it in a couple seconds, but why are all thieves, why do they make a mess, right? If I'm trying to steal something, I'm gonna go in swiftly, covertly, take the thing, and get the F out of there. But why do they take the time to I gotta throw a bunch of bottles on the floor? It's on every movie and every channel, I just take the thing and go.
It's like the practice where they hung the extension cord from the ceiling fan for some reason.
Yeah, why did?
I need to see it. See,
that's what you do if you're trying to stage it to look like a burglary.
That's right. If it's but
if it's an actual burglary, just get the thing.
I know. I will say that lightning effect looks amazing.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Every bit is up to our current standards, and the makeup of the Lethian is really, really cool.
Yeah, I thought his voice actor was really good too. Everything about him was pretty cool.
Yeah. So he gets hit with the finger lightning, and we begin Act 1 with Bashir waking up and calling security. All of his Star Trek toys have been strewn about, and
clean up, everybody.
It looks just like my shelves behind me when Charlie gets too frisky. He calls, and nobody answers the call, and the computer isn't responding at all. He hears whispering and walks onto the dark and abandoned promenade. He looks into a very convenient mirror to discover that he has my temples. and he hears crashing in Quarks.
He has my temples when I was 18.
Yeah, that's true.
I went early.
It's hard to tell, but there's definitely a lot of gray cooking in there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, you're just all gray. Mm-hmm. I'm touch of gray. You're just all gray.
I'll have the salt and pepper. Hold the pepper.
So he finds a terrified Quark holding his tray. He says, he's gonna kill us. We can't move or he'll find us, but he won't say who. Quark runs off, and then somebody throws a chair at Bashir from out of the darkness. So he just wanders off in search of Quarks and finds tea leaking out of a replicator.
We do get some awesome wide shots of the station in the set.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this episode had to be so cheap because they're basically just like, turn off the lights on the set, let's wander around.
Mm-hmm. Now, Keith, how many beverages do you think, if I'd like just sprinkle it a little bit on your finger, you could sniff and identify?
But if it were like coffee, you'd be able to smell it immediately.
Yeah,
know
but like
what
a
it is.
specific varietal of tea is pretty good.
He's British.
That's fair.
Tea's his thing.
That's fair.
Well done. Ooh, this is Diet Mountain Dew from. I feel like this is like May.
I can smell the yellow number 5.
So he goes to find Odo inside the security office, but finds Garrick instead. Garrick explains that the station has had a major systems failure. Only life support is working, and everyone else is missing. But then Bashir hears the whispers again, and we learn. We get an interesting little detail here. Cardassian hearing isn't as good as humans.
Very interesting, I thought.
Yeah,
because our hearing is generally known in the human world or in our biosphere as really bad.
I mean, that's just because we do too much recording.
No, I mean that, we don't hear as many of the waves.
Oh, yes. Well, compared to, many species, that's true. But, like, Cardassians have some, as, like, fearsome and, like, malevolent as they are, they have some limitations. They don't hear very well. They don't take the cold very well.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of joint articulation. With those big shoulder pads.
Big shoulder pads. Yeah, exactly. They can't turn their heads like Batman.
Cool shot here. Good look at the deepness of the ring.
Which has that step, which we've seen before. We saw that step was featured on Melora, and it's very odd that they have a step there. But clearly, it's from a production reason. So Bashir hears more whispers. If we learn that, they decide to split up naturally and search the station. Bashir wanders down a corridor when the lights start turning off behind him like a horror movie. Then he's trapped by a force field. The light down the corridor thing, I thought that was very effective. Scary. So in Act 2, he gets on a turbo. I don't know what was the force field about? He just I hit a force field. Then Act 2, we're hopping onto a turbo
I think
lift.
it was more like, okay, we have 3 minutes to fill. Like, find some spots on the.
There's a lot of filler in this episode. So he gets on a turbo lift.
It's interesting you say that. Time out. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is an important thing because I've come to a place of peace, Keith.
Oh, okay.
I found myself feeling and commenting on, in this show and Strange New World, but this show often, that there's often this place between like minute 12 and minute like 32 or 28 that I feel a little bit like, come on, get on with it, right? Okay, we've set the pieces, like, let's go. Let me see. Yeah. And whereas I used to critique that, now I'm realizing that's just their pacing. They like to take all their toys out, show you all their toys, and then have them like just smash against each other for a little while, right? They just want like, here's the like here we've set every character's in kind of a different, playing a little bit of a different intention. And before we tell you what that's all about, we're just gonna, okay, now let's see how Kira is gonna talk. Let's see how Odo. Let's just play with our toys a little bit before we progress the plot. Now, is that pacing good? Is it bad? I've come to accept it now because it seems to be consistent enough that it seems to be that's their choice, and it's less of a choice now, and it's become a style.
Well, it's in the good episodes, that's where you do your character work, right? Mm-hmm. That's where you expand the mystery. That's where you have the dynamics and characters. In the bad episodes, then it's just filler. And I think that really is, that's what it is. So he gets in the turbo lift, and the Lethian tries to force open the door, but he kicks them out. Bashir starts to pass out for some reason. Then we never explained why he's about to pass out.
Put a pin in the wormhole.
Yeah, he's now full Fantastic Four.
It does look just like that guy.
Yeah, see?
Why did he pass out? I thought maybe this, later, I was like, oh, but maybe they had an idea at some point they were going to cut to him. Like, every time he passes out, they're going to cut to him in a coma somewhere and back. But
sure, yeah, that would make sense. But there's just a lot of things just sort of, happen.
Mm-hmm. But we get to see things we've never seen before. Have we ever seen this bit of the turbo? This is a cool thing.
The roof of the turbo lift? I don't know if we have. But we can see the Lethian start to bash through it. But then none of that matters because he just leaves the turbo lift and he hears Kira and O'Brien arguing. He walks into the wardroom where he finds them there with Dax and Odo. They're trying to decide what to do about the Lethian. Bashir now looks noticeably older.
He looks like old Biff now.
Old Biff. And the four of them are oddly arguing with each other. He asks what's going on, and Dax finally notices that he's an old man makeup. Dax and O'Brien are arguing about what to do with the Lethian. They all go and try to fix, a computer something. They keep arguing, they argue some more, and they get to a communications relay. We hear Dax, so they fix the communications relay, and we hear Dax and Cisco talking about trying to save someone from a telepathic injury. And we hear that the real Bashir is in a telepathic coma. So that's where we are. Bashir puts it together quickly. He's in a coma. That's what's happening, which I think is good pacing-wise to get to that by the end of Act 2.
Yeah.
And then it kind of makes Act 3 pointless, but here we are. So in Act 3, everyone here are just parts of his brain interacting with itself. They're all supposed to be archetypes of voices in his head. But the most truthful part is Odo saying, so we're all here just for you to have someone to talk to? Yup. Bashir...
Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I completely agree with your criticism that I foresee. I completely do. But the sci-fi thing here, and from a therapy standpoint, that I really kind of find fascinating because it's something not explored often, is what if you had to characterize all of your fears, Keith, right? All of your fears and insecurities and all the shit going on in your head. What if you had to cast that, instead of being mean Keith, as all your friends? Who would be what? That is fascinating.
I would love if that had been the episode. I would love had they actually done anything with that.
Mm-hmm.
But he very quickly explains which one of them is the Scarecrow, the Lion, and the Tin Man, though we haven't really established any of it well. We just heard them bickering.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I love that idea.
It's great. It's a great idea.
But it was in and out in 45 seconds. None of the writing was clear. He explained, oh, you're my this and you're my that. I couldn't tell which was which until he explained it, and then it's not really...
It's not important. And what makes that fascinating, the character growth or development or the insight that we would get if there was a why to each of those?
If it were just... they gave it more time...
No, they tried to write themselves out of it when Garrick says at the end.
Yeah, they bailed. They bailed on it.
Yeah, and Garrick tries to talk, being like, "Oh, you cast me as the villain, and there's something to that." And you're like, "Yeah, I would have loved. What's the something? Can we talk about it?"
Well,
his makes the most sense, obviously, but the rest of them it is pretty arbitrary, except for the Cisco. The Cisco thing kind of makes sense, but
the Cisco thing was the competence. O'Brien was the fear. Kira or Odo was or Dax was the aggression or whatever.
Wasn't Quark already the fear kind of? They're all kind of the fear.
They're all kind of. It's just okay, but forget the hopping around with tennis balls. Let's get in a room and really explore this. That sounds like good sci-fi, good Star Trek. If we actually got into Bashir's head, but we really didn't get that far into Bashir's head until the very end. Anyway. The Lethian is running around trying to damage his mind. And he thinks, if I can fix the station, he can fix his mind and he'll wake up. Save the cheerleader, save the world. The Lethian steals Dax. Then
Heroes,
Bashir.
Keith?
Heroes, yes.
Good pull.
The Lethian steals Dax for some reason. Then Bashir finds himself playing tennis with Garrick. Siddig has clearly played tennis before. Andrew Robinson, not so much. If you go back and watch it, you never see the tennis ball and Andrew Robinson in the same frame. He swings the racket out of frame.
There it is.
So Bashir plans to go to Ops and help repair the station. But on the way, he runs into a ton of injured people in the hall, being treated by Cisco, who represents his skill. He recruits him to go help in Ops, but the Lethian... So we have this moment like where he recruits Cisco, let's go, but then immediately the Lethian grabs Cisco and pulls him through a wall. It's all a very direct-to-video Nightmare on Elm Street.
Through the bed.
Through the bed, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a cool effect pulling him through the wall, but like, we have all these... We set up these ideas and we literally yank them through a wall so we don't actually deal with the idea or into it. That's weird. So
that's money, baby. We have to give the impression that Avery Brooks is in the episode, but he's not.
That's right. He worked for like 2 hours.
You hear his voice. He gets pulled through a thing.
Yeah, he's like, "Look, I'm flying to Mexico on Tuesday. You have 4 hours. Make this happen."
I gotta grow a goatee pretty quick.
Yo, it's coming. It's coming soon.
I've
buddy.
been promised that. So.
Oh, it's exciting. So then he runs into the Lethian, who threatens him and is impervious to phaser fire.
And everybody just wants to take that Predator design, huh?
Yeah. Well, although this is not nearly as much of a ripoff as Strange New World, and I think it's a fantastic makeup.
It is.
Like the little teeth coming down. That's so cool. So in Act 4, Bashir put on a ton more old guy makeup during the commercial break and discovers a dead Kira and half-gooed Odo.
These are cool shots. Let me see if I mean, that's awesome. That's a badass shot.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, that's like the makeup design is fantastic.
Dead Kira acting her ass off, and then good Odo.
Half-good. Look, it's very hard to do that at this point. The Lethian is killing off parts of him. Odo says, use the conduits. That was, at least he did something. He finds O'Brien in there, telling him he's going to fail. Then they arrive back in the promenade for some reason, and we see a monitor showing Bashir in the real world who is dying. They find a crowd in Quarks betting over another old Bashir about how much longer he has to live. Then
Keith is busy.
I'm busy. Charles, do your job. Okay, so then O'Brien is dead, and the Lethian kills Quark.
I didn't quite understand the switch between, like, it's O'Brien, it's Bashir, and then it's O'Brien,
and then
but it's like a part of Bashir. I mean, listen, the psychobabble. If we write the episode for them and like really get into the therapy of the therapy of it all, there's some great talks to be had.
There's a good episode that could have been written here. This is not that episode.
It's interesting because I had in the 4 minutes I had between watching it, peeing, and then starting this, I felt like I liked it, but what I'm coming to realize, and this is not you swaying me, this is, it takes a while to think about these things, is that, once again, I like... Great example. You know those books they sell that are like writing prompts? So for people who are like little writer's blocked and they're like, here's a exercise. So here's a concept. Now write about it. So like, or like a theme. Remember themes in high school? I don't know, maybe nobody remembers that. We called them themes. Or it was the exact same thing. Here's the sort of bold, write about a time you were really embarrassed. And then you have to write a 4-page essay or whatever. Well, here, the prompt is really interesting.
Right.
But if you're that English teacher, most likely 90% of the essays you're going to get are going to be boring as hell or filler or BS, right? And maybe 3 are great. I feel like this is not one of the 3.
It's like it has a lot of a feeling of a story written by like a 7-year-old. and then a monster comes in and bites me, and then all of a sudden I'm on the roof, and then all of a sudden a big bird comes down and drops an egg on me, and then all of a sudden Mom is dead, and then all of a sudden,
which on one level, that is how nightmares work. And that is how our brains work. We talk about, you and I specifically talk about all the time, in really traumatic moments and stressful times in our lives, our recollections are scattered, are prismed, are incoherent, are asynchronous, and all of that can be furtive and interesting and create a really horrific, scary, emotional, tense-filled episode of television. But if there isn't enough connective tissue or explanation or conversation or ideas strewn with stitched together, it just becomes, like you said, a little nonsensical.
Yeah, and I don't mind it being a little chaotic, and I don't mind that it being, there's some levels of absurdity and levels of like random stuff, but you do have to have sort of a theme to it. You have to have a point to it, and I think connective tissue, like you said. Like,
now, all of that said,
why is this happening? Why is that happening?
What salvages this for me, some spoiler, from being just like total schlock, and we mentioned it at the top, is Siddig. I think he
does a great job
grounding the performance enough, so we're actually seeing someone age and play the different stages of life as he goes, for what that's worth. And we can, how much we want to weight that is.
I mean, like, there are good elements here. It just adds up to nonsense. So Bashir runs out and falls, and is helped by Garrick, but he's fallen and he can't get up. And we begin Act 5. He gets up, despite
he definitely claims his hip is broken.
Yeah, despite having diagnosis of the broken hip, he just like hops right up and hobbles to Ops. Bashir is now in full ancient makeup.
And he's doing the walk.
And they discover a big birthday party in Ops, and a Dabo lady actually singing Happy Birthday a la Marilyn Monroe. And they must have paid for the rights, because the copyright for Happy Birthday, the song, was still being enforced.
They do a pretty solid little harmony, and they've got some good pitch. Everybody in this episode can carry a tune.
No, I'm telling you, it's a musical cast. She was great. They could afford to pay for this, for the rights to the song, because this episode is cheap. Other than makeup and a couple of goo effects, it was a bottle episode completely. So
this scene actually affected me the most, to be honest with you, because it's my mom's birthday coming up, and I'm struggling a lot right now with watching her. I've seen her age, and that's been okay. I've been fine with that, but she's now becoming an older person, and succumbing to a lot of the kind of like feeling of just giving up a little bit. And I'm having a really hard time with that emotionally. And this scene, for some reason, captured that. I think his physicality, and just, I don't know, for some reason, it really struck me. I don't know that that's what they were going for, but it really started me.
There is that turn between aging and elderly.
Yeah, and it is.
And it's hard to describe exactly what it is, but I think it has to do with like an aging person you don't have to take care of.
Yeah.
And an elderly person you do.
Yeah, and there's this captured a lot of things that, and this is why I was like a 13-year-old, 14, when we never would have caught half the shit that this episode kind of can stir. And part of it is that, my mom, like, it's nice that they portray Bashir, because he's still a young man in his having the fight to be like, no, I'm going to save the station. I want to blah, blah, blah. Whereas my mom, who's just representative for me emotionally of a period of life I will get to, is much less defiant of accepting her abilities and her limitations and finding a way to cope and all those things like Siddig portrays here, and much more fearful, denialful.
Yeah.
And it's a much sadder episode I'm watching in real time. And so anyway, so at this point in the watch, I got a little muddied emotionally. Like, it's hard. I'm a little
and understandable. And a lot of those characteristics are personal more than age.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I know people who have done that at 30. and people at 90 who have not.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we're obviously going to talk about like how much this episode is about aging.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it had been more so, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I actually thought it was gonna be. I was like, oh, it's gonna be therapy for me to really work through some stuff. But it really comes up short in a lot of ways. But let's get through it. Yeah.
They really tried, or they didn't. I don't know what they did.
Yeah.
Anyway, he hobbles up to a computer, spouting some technobabble. They open a panel and they're showered by tennis balls, which I liked. I mean, it's like the sort of nightmarish dream quality. Like, sure, that makes sense.
It's the trigger, right? He's being pummeled by the stuff he's stored in the overhead compartment.
Mm-hmm.
It's very literal, and now we've got to discuss it, Keith.
We're pummeled by our past. I get it. He falls down and probably breaks his other hip, but he gets back up and hits another button, more tennis balls. Then he realizes that Garrick doesn't represent a part of himself after all. He's actually the Lethian, and we morph from Garrick to the Lethian.
This is the best. Clearly, the site. Look what character. What's Garrick's actor name? I forget. Shit.
Andrew Robinson.
Sightlines.
Yeah.
100% on a different plane. Not.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not and then. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, and that morph, like you'd think that was super, super advanced technology, but I actually had a morphing program in like 97, only like 2 years after this. I was doing this on my home computer for a school project. I actually morphed two people together.
Nice.
Somewhere, I wish I had it somewhere. But I full on did it, and it was, it's obviously not quite as good as that, but like not as bad as you would think.
We just, it's everything, Keith, in our life. Well, I mean, we've got a lot of cool stuff, but we just were born a little too early for, well, we're going to see in a little bit, even things when I was 30 years old, like videos of things I was a part of, even though the technology at the time just wasn't quite good enough. Like I thought, oh, this is like, I have. Spoiler alert, when I turned 30, I did a play about kind of this exactly, and it was like, oh, I have that on DVD. Let me grab the DVD. There was like a bootleg DVD somebody did from the audience, and even that, the digital technology of when I turned 30 was what?
Most terrible.
2010? Is terrible. Yeah. I'm looking, I was like,
terrible.
You can't hear it, you can't understand it, you can't see it, and that wasn't like a pro shot thing, but man, we just missed it all. At least we got good TV when we were young. That's
true. We're in that interesting generation that we were born analog, and then we became digital throughout our lives.
Basically, our stint on this planet, Keith, we are the tech. The tech analogy would be our time on this planet is to people having to convert all their old VHSs to DVD. That period of time when people had that one VCR that could do that, that's us.
Well, because we're VHS through today.
Yeah.
Through MP4.
Yeah.
Like
with an H.264 encoder that's all blocky and pixelated, and you're like, is this better quality? I don't think it is.
Yeah, see? All right, anyway, let's move forward.
Yeah.
So, we see the more from Garrick to the Lethian. Bashir is now full Hector from Breaking Bad. And the Lethian tells him to give up.
Ding, ding, ding,
That's what you've always done.
That's the Pete, that is the funniest pull you've ever done on the show. Ding 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 ding.
It looks just like him.
Hector Salamanca. Yeah.
Hector Salamanca.
Goddamn,
exactly.
that show. Oof, so good.
So we finally get to actually learning something about Bashir here for the very first time in the episode.
Yeah.
He says, you're going to give up like you've always done. When you were young, you wanted to be a tennis player, but you quit because your parents wouldn't approve. Even though you told yourself you weren't good enough to go pro, you were. And he went into medicine to please his parents. Then he points out that he should have been first in his class, but he purposely answered a question wrong, the pre-ganglionic and post-ganglionic, to avoid the pressure.
Doesn't the Lethian know, though, that he's a therapist never just gives you the answers?
But the Lethian isn't a therapist. He's a mean therapist. He's not actually...
He's a monster.
He's a monster. He's trying to be mean.
So I guess my wormhole question. Well, let's wait till we get to wormholes. I always pre-do it because the Lethian really is my biggest wormhole. We'll get there.
Yeah,
I'll pitch the question to you when we get there.
Is it? Yeah, we've a lot. Yeah, we're so close. Mm-hmm. The recap. This is the shortest recap I've ever written.
Yeah, it's great. We just hit an hour, and I recorded for like 20 minutes talking, so this is gonna be great. Let's go.
Then he asks about Dax. Why'd you give up chasing Dax? So Bashir makes a crawl for it back to the infirmary, and this is where he can fix things, not on Ops, because this is his home base. He fixes some technical things and turns the lights back on, and the Lethian is not happy about this. Bashir defends himself and his choices and says, "This is where I belong, and this is the life that I want." He turns on a force field and blocks the Lethian, then sterilizes him out of existence. Naturally, this makes him wake up in the real world. And all is well. Later, back at brunch, Bashir explains that the Lethian got caught, and that he's not the actual Lethian in real life. Got caught immediately, and that now he's not so bummed about turning 30 anymore. Garrick wants to know why he was the subconscious villain in Bashir's head. And he says, "After all this, you still don't trust me? There's hope for you yet." Good final Garrick beat. So, So we've got some stuff to discuss here in a little segment we call... No.
Damn.
Why do you hate the bumpers?
2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Oh, why isn't
Attention, Bajoran workers.
Oh,
let us discuss wormholes in the plot, shall we?
Yeah, hold on. I want to grab this thing real quick so I can do it later. Okay, great. Did it, nailed it. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Okay, I'll do it a different way later. Okay, so
what's happening over there?
Oh no, God. Okay, yeah, all right, yeah. For those of you listening at home, that was just a lot of mouth noises.
Yes, we know.
All right, so biggest. There, he knows it. Stop the clock. So the question becomes, the guy zaps him, right? Which puts him in a coma, or like, it wasn't a full zap because as he says later, that would have killed him. They're usually lethal. Right. So the thing in his head wasn't an actual. Was trying to kill him, or was it just everything was his subconscious trying to get back? Was all just basically a fever dream in his, or was there like a part of the monster who was actually trying to accomplish killing him, and he actually had agency in fighting back? Julian's agency in his self-rescue, I guess, is my wormhole. Is there any truth to it?
Julian's agency makes sense to me, right? Like if you're struggling to wake up, right? And so, like from a coma or whatever. But let's just say like you're sleeping really hard in the morning, and you're like, I gotta wake up, and like you dream about waking up, and you wake up, and then you realize, oh, it's still a dream, and then you're fighting to wake, that sort of a thing. You're trying to fight to wake up. I could totally understand in a coma sort of a world that you're sort of fighting to.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me. As much as like, but the monster he was trying to overcome wasn't the act. There is no one-to-one connection between monster.
Well, right, yeah, because if the Lethian were still there with his fingers on his head and he was like telepathically, I think the question is the Lethian's agency.
Yeah. I guess that's
Is like, was there actually? I don't think we're to believe that the Lethian actually was conscious, a conscious part of that.
Okay.
I think the Lethian in Bashir's head was still part of Bashir's head, even though we say, "Oh, it's the Lethian, not me." I think it still is Bashir's head.
Okay.
Trying to recover from the injury. I think.
Yes. Well, that I guess is the confusion of that is a wormhole. It's not a fully formed. It's a partial wormhole. I'll also say that I think the last act, the bit where we what about Bob it, and we tell you exactly what his life path could have been, his dealing with the what ifs and all that. When he's ancient Bashir is all tracks and makes sense and is the what of the episode. It's the meat of the sandwich. Everything else, though, as we started to discuss, is a wormhole. There's no real one-to-one between why the Scarecrow is a Scarecrow or why
right.
But I think there probably will be people who defend that and say, hey, it's a fever dream. It's shattered mirror prism. But I feel like they lead you to believe that it's important. Right? That it's going to be important to him solving that riddle to get to the MacGuffin to escape the death trap. And it doesn't really seem to be important. And that is a wormhole, in my opinion. It just doesn't make specific sense.
No, 100%. I mean, because like if the last 5 minutes where we examine the ways in which Bashir made choices not to pursue option A, not to pursue option B, not to pursue option C, and when you're at 30, right, and especially when you're older, you really start to re-examine those choices.
Mm-hmm. I
could have I had this option on the table. I did not walk through that door. I walked through this other door or whatever. And we want to and all right, so then not only are we examining those choices, are we examining, did we not take that path because we were scared? Or did we not take that path because of whatever, and in the arts, totally, for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I sort of walked away from my performing career. Did I do it because I was scared? Because I had stage fright? You're damn right.
Mm-hmm.
Did I also do it because I love writing? And that was more exciting to me, and that was more who I am. Yes, right? So if this episode, because they gave 3 examples, right? The tennis, the being a doctor because your parents wanted it, and the Dax thing. If we really wanted to explore each of those choices and
are you wormholing here, Keith, or are you giving your summation of the episode?
I'm fixing the episode.
Okay.
So
should we jump right over?
No, I'm going to forget it if I don't.
Okay, go for it.
So so let's take this up. I'm going to re-break the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lethian's point of view and his anxiety is like, you're a coward. You could have had this amazing life and you chose to bail on each of those things, right? You could have been a tennis player. You were, professional tennis player. You were too scared to do it. You could have been number 1 in your class, the great famous doctor, and you chose not to do it. You could have been with Dax. You chose not to. All right. So let's do a Miracle on 50, or what is it? Miracle on 54th Street? No, the other Jimmy Stewart movie.
Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life, yes. And all right, let's show his life had he been a tennis player. Let's show his life had he been the top of the class. Let's show his life with Dax. And Bashir's point is like, no, I want this life. I could have had those things. They would have been exciting, but there's a reason why I chose to other than cowardice, because I like being a doctor out here in Deep Space Nine. I like my friendship with Dax. Whatever it is, have him defend those things. So you sort of like do the, do that sort of what am I thinking of? Christmas Story, the Scrooge.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and do that. That would have been an interesting episode. That would have had
Christmas
a lot
Carol.
more to say. Christmas Carol. Yeah. Could have Christmas Caroled it, and that would have made a lot more sense. So my wormholes basically are everything that happened up until that last few minutes. Because if we're to take the Lethian does not have agency after he zapped him, this is all Bashir working through his shit.
Yes.
Right? There's like that mushy middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 30 minutes after the first 5 minutes and before the last 7 was just kind of a waste of time, right?
No, it's a waste of time. I mean, like you and I talked about it. He's doing the work, which I think this is a fictionalization of doing the work.
But it's not, though.
I know. I understand that. I'm just saying that's, I think, the premise. The problem is that what makes good TV generally is here's a riddle or here's a problem. How are we going to use our intelligence to piece through it? And if the vibe is that had he not that he wasn't conscious, Bashir, working through these things, right? And I get the feeling that he was gonna either wake up or not wake up from his right. Like they kind of lead you to believe that him solving the MacGuffin inside this world is what healed him physically, but I don't know that I don't outright say that, and that doesn't quite make a lot of sense based on the kind of physics and everything they explain in his dream world. Even the characters in his dream world are kind of like, so we're sort of not important.
Hey, stop scratching the couch.
It's muddied. So whether or not you agree with that, dear watcher, dear viewer, dear listener, or we're wrong, or their intentions I didn't read the thing this week, so I don't even know what their intentions were, but they don't make it clear enough one way or the other that we should even have this conversation. So that is a wormhole, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think this episode is, I think you put it perfectly, right? This episode is either a do the work episode or a solve the mystery episode. And they solved the mystery at the end of Act 2. So then you have to do the work, but they really didn't do the work until the last 5 minutes.
Or like if in some of those episodes where they like get trapped in a this or trapped in a that or trapped in a different realm or whatever, they have to literally kill the monster or solve the thing to get out of the trap. Here it doesn't really feel like him doing the doodads at the computer and being like, oh, Dax is my friend. Friend zone is okay. Actually killed the monster. So
I think it's so much better. Like the much better episode is that do your therapy work, heal your brain. That's how you wake up, which they sort of did, but they only in the last 5 minutes. All right, let's talk best moment, then we can finish.
Yeah, I just think Siddiq's performance is really great, and I think that last few beats from where like I started to see my mom in this whole thing through him sterilizing him. Just defending your choices or understanding them, I think is the best moment because it's so weird, Keith. Last night I had this exact conversation with my brother. I was kind of working with him through some things because he's sometimes gets trapped in my brother is like really successful and does really well for himself professionally and in his personal life, but he still can't get over the like, what if I had gone down this path, I'd have more and I could provide this much more. And I could have 2 houses instead of the blah, 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 blah. And what I had said to him, what I thought was pretty astutely, and where I think I like that moment, and I'm keeping it as my best moment, but I do have a problem with it also.
Okay.
Is that, at least in my opinion, you don't just defend your choices and say, well, this is where I'm supposed to be and I ended up here, right? I think anytime you're arguing with the what if, you're bound to lose. You can't have a rational argument or an objective-based argument with the what if because you have no hard data, right? There's not saying that, Keith, had you made the decision to keep being a performer, let's say you liked them equally and you decided to keep doing that you would have been successful or that you would have been fulfilled or that 1,000 other dice rolls would have gone a certain way to make you in a better place than you are now. You just can't argue it, right? So at some point it's not just a defending my choices and saying this is where I'm meant to be. It's kind of an acceptance, in my opinion, of this is the way it went.
Well, and I think, I think both in Bashir's example and in mine, it wouldn't be defending the choice. It would be defending the motivations for the choice.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Because it wasn't that I made the right choice. It's that I didn't not make the choice because I was scared. It wasn't fear that caused me to make that choice. I actually wanted this other thing more. When you're really saying you were a coward, but that's not what it was.
I think that I think a lot of the effort we use in even dealing with the what if, in wrestling with it, that energy could be transplanted over to the here's the way it is, let me find the appreciation and the making this the best it can be, would be better served. That's kind of the conversation. And we don't really have that conversation here either. It's more him just defending this. Everything is the way it's supposed to be. And that is very easy and very clean and borders on trite in the grand picture. But that all said, he grounds it in a very personal place for Bashir, and I think there is growth for Bashir because of that performance, and because of at least seeing him wrestle with it, whether we liked the specific way he did so. And so that, I will say, is best moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's the last few minutes where we actually learn something about Bashir. I think learning that he biffed the exam on purpose
is cool, yeah.
Is very interesting. I think that says a lot about the character. And
retcons and informs when he's up for this big award, and all this attention about it and focus would make him very uncomfortable.
Yeah, because he sort of chose not to have that while pretending that he did. Like, it's very complicated. Like, I totally get it. Like, you want the attention, you also don't want the attention. You're drawn to it like the flame, but you're scared of it. It's all of those things.
Complicated is good, in my opinion, because that's what life is. Life is complicated. There aren't any hard answers usually, so I don't mind complicated.
No, for sure. And as I mentioned, there's another layer here that we haven't hit yet, and they haven't even conceived of yet. On a production level, but there's another layer here that's going to make it even more interesting. So I like that table setting, even if it were unintentional. I think it's time to hand out some stem bolts. What do you say?
Only if they're self-sealing.
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you. Charlie, you are not going to die if I don't give you my full attention for 10 more minutes. I promise you're going to survive. You're going to make it.
I had to shut the door. I couldn't do the cats right now. So yeah, we've started our conversation clearly already.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And, this is one of those things where, this would have been a lot more cut and dry if I was younger, when I was because all the nonsensical stuff, you're just like, nah, all right. The fact that it does effectively drum up a lot of the feelings. I went back and started exploring, how did I feel when I was 30? What did I think was ahead? What did I think was behind?
Yeah.
How do I wrestle with the questions he's wrestling with? How do I defend them? How would I cast the people in my life as my anxieties? Would they be a part of that story? Does that even make sense, right? If the monster is you the whole time, like maybe the monster isn't Garrick, the monster is you. It should have been him. The thing should have transferred, so I don't want to give it too much credit, because even though
the alternate versions of him that had made those other choices.
Because it makes us fanfic better episodes doesn't mean it was trying to make us fanfic better.
We shouldn't have to rewrite the episode.
That said, it does ask some really cool questions, which is awesome that it goes and having an episode dealing with existential crisis of aging is pretty baller for a sci-fi like action adventure show to do. I think this actually shows a little lack of confidence, where we often herald it for its confidence, and I think you don't have to make it an action adventure spectacle of the Dream Warriors Elm Street type of show. You could, like you said, people sitting around a room talking and look, the opening scene with Garrick, where they're juxtaposing our fear of aging with the Cardassian view, was interesting, was furtive. Holding us up to a mirror is interesting. Those conversations are interesting. He could have had some could have.
Yeah.
It's not a total miss for me, because I was moved in certain ways, and I think that it showed growth performance-wise for Siddig, and his character had a little bit of growth. But it's just not sometimes I think I'm harder on the episodes that showed a lot of potential and just biffed it.
Sure.
Than the ones that just are like, whatever,
Yeah.
So it's hard to put a number on it, because I'm so fresh to it. But I'd like to hear what you have to say officially before I put a full number on it.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think missed opportunity is exactly the way I would categorize this. I think anytime you're going to spend an episode inside somebody's mind, that is the most fertile ground. Mm-hmm. And we should go in there and come out of there feeling like we have had an excavation of a character. And we really only scratched the surface right at the very end. And it wasn't even really an excavation of his fear of aging. right? He just got older. We didn't really learn anything about how he felt about it. He just physically got older. And the anxieties that he was dealing with weren't related to aging.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was battling this other guy. He was whatever. So you had, it was so confused because it was like, is it about missed opportunities? Well, a little bit. Is it about aging? Well, he gets older. Is it about the different facets of his brain that aren't able to work together? Sort of. Is it a sci-fi battle with this other alien? It wasn't any of those things, because it was all of those things. And it was just, if I were the showrunner, I'd be like, okay, good idea. Now go back and write the episode. Pick a lane, write a great episode about it. And that's not what happened. And as we've been talking here for like an hour and 10 minutes, and I have ideas for like 4 different fantastic episodes that can be written here. Go back to the writer's room. Finish the idea before. I mean, I get they're under such. We're 18 episodes into a season. It was bum 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 bum. I'm sure it was like a frantic, panicked pace that they were at this point. But like take one idea for an episode I had here. Okay, so if we want to have a battle, right? We want to talk about the choices we didn't make because we were afraid or whatever. All right, so have it be ourselves. I would love to have an episode where I battle myself, who made other choices. The version of me that stayed being an actor, the version of me that's 50 pounds lighter and has, got into the ensemble of Phantom on Broadway, but maybe I didn't feel fully as fulfilled by it as I expected to. Pick the vision of me that, didn't get married or got married earlier or stayed single or whatever it was. The person of me who stayed in New York, or didn't go to opera school, who went into theater school. The person of me didn't go to the arts at all. Battle, have an argument, have each of those pieces of me argue that this was the best choice. And then at the end, have me call balls and strikes on whether or not I made the right choice or not. That's interesting, right? But it didn't do that. So, in the end, it's just kind of a mess and a missed opportunity. So you don't, and more importantly, I don't really ever want to watch it again. Right? This is one of those, I skip this episode almost every time on my reviewing, or I don't actually skip episodes, but I don't pay much attention to this one on my reviewings. And I'm just like,
I had an initial instinct to like, I wondered if on rewatch I'd pick up some more, like maybe some hidden things. And if you're telling me you're not finding them, then maybe I don't know that I'd want to rewatch it either. So
no, it's just not. It's not a good episode. I just flat out just not a good episode. So I need to hand out some self-sealing stem balls, but I got to take a look at my ratings previously this season. Yeah, I think it's gonna get a 63.
It feels fair. I was on the 65 cusp. And I do think I liked it probably a teeny bit better than you. So I think 65 feels good. I'm going to stick there.
65. Okay. Well, yeah. So we want to know what you thought. How many self-sealing stem bolts do you give? Are we missing something? Maybe. Right? Is there something about this that was great that we're just didn't understand? Yeah. Tell us your thoughts. And, but let me before we tag it, we need to talk about what did IMDb think? What did the collective Trekverse think of this episode? They came in at 6.4, so 64 self-sealing stem bolts right between the two of us. This is ranked number 155 out of 173 episodes of Deep Space Nine, not enjoyed by the viewers of Deep Space Nine. But next week, we'll be discussing Through the Looking Glass. So Here we go. Mike?
Keith, we do a lot of other shows. We talk about stuff on K&M Geekly on Mondays. We talk about Strange New Worlds on Fridays. And then on Sundays, we look at Star Trek toys, so you can get all that cool content here. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell a friend. I wanted to talk quickly. Yes, you might have heard of the musical Rent, but before the musical Rent, the composer of Rent wrote a show called Tick, Tick, Boom, which is about an artist turning 30 and dealing with it, and kind of going through that kind of experience. When I turned 30, I was turning 30, and it's framed around a birthday party, right? Much like something we just watched.
Turning 30.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we had a bootleg recording of one of that. It was cool. I got to do it when I was turning 30, got to do the show, and we had a very short run. It was like 2 weeks, I think. But it was really successful, and so they extended it an extra week, but they had already moved on to the next show at the Playhouse, so they'd struck the set and everything. So we ended up having to do an extra week of the show, just take the show, and the band came, and we just like stuck it on top of another set of a different play, which was like
crazy,
kind of really kind of cool. And,
it's like children's theater.
It was rad, and people it was people out the door. It was so successful. I was really, and that was cool. Me turning 30, and it's about a guy, an artist saying, no, fuck all of the choices and the bad stuff. This is what I want to do, and like fuck the sacrifices. This is what I want to do, and that was like really important to me at the time. In fact, I got a tattoo about it.
Chicken wings?
No, it says cages of wings. It's a lyric from the show. Basically, that's a bird in relief.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyway, because I always wanted to remember that feeling, so that when you get older and more, the existential crisis becomes more crisis. I wanted to remember that at one point in my life, I was confident about my direction. Anyway, the bootleg is really bad, but here's just like, I can't wait. There's 3 minutes of some, they're not even contextually the best parts, but whatever. Instead of our normal send out, I thought we would end it with that. Until next time.
That's my job. Till then.
Right, wrong show.
This has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine.
Hi, I'm John, and lately I've been hearing that sound, that ticking. It's not a big deal. It's actually kind of comforting, sort of like a...
look at baby Mike.
I was 29.
Choices, wicked witches, while we feel torment behind the curtain. Tired of the laser, we slam words, clock is ticking, that's what's certain.
Look at the bass player just killing it.
Hell yeah. You gonna jump? Come on, you gotta jump.
I don't jump.
Yeah, you better, Belle. Mike.
Thanks, buddy.
I can't do it anymore, Mike. I got the show.
The show was very good. You should be proud of it. Everybody loves it.
My friends love it. Nobody wants to produce it.
It's a workshop.
Keith.
You'll keep working. Develop it.
I'm supposed to produce it?
And you start something new.
It's been another 5 years on something that doesn't fucking go anywhere. My head will explode. By then, Mike, I'll be 35.
35, 30, who cares? Focus on something important and do your work.
That's easy for you to say. You have a job. An apartment, a fucking BMW.
You both made choices.
Well, I'm not going to sell out.
All of this is your fear talking. You have to take control of it.
Bashir.
What does it take to wake up a generation? How can you make someone take up their life? We don't wake up and shake up the nation. We lose the dust of the world, wondering cages or wings, which do you prefer? Ask the bird. You are love, baby, don't say the answer. Just be louder.
Yeah, Mikey.